John and Brian, welcome to the Game Informer Show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Oh my gosh, it's an honor to have you. We have talked a lot about Spider-Man on this podcast, not only with the cover story and all that stuff where it was just a gush-a-palooza, but then with the game club, like so many emails, so many people wrote in, and it turns out, I mean, I would say the ratio, I don't want to kiss your ass too much, the ratio is probably 98% positive to 2% maybe. Like, I don't know if I'm that into this game, but people, good God, love your game. So congratulations.
That's great.
Thank you.
What has it been like? I mean, just the news alone of it being the fastest selling, PlayStation exclusive? Is that the official branding there?
I think so. Yeah, it was like 3.3 million in 3 days or some as a reporter. It was pretty crazy.
I mean, did you have any expectations on your end? Did you have a number written down on a napkin or anything like that?
No, I mean, we talked about it in the halls and we were curious, but you never know with these kinds of things. You know, like we've worked on games where, you know, it didn't sell nearly as much as we thought it should. So we try not to get too excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, I mean, obviously we knew being Spider-Man, it would be a big deal. I don't think we understood the phenomenon that would be though. It kind of started sinking in when photo mode happened.
Photo mode was amazing.
Oh yeah,
to get everybody talking about it.
And then to like 2 weeks ago, be on Instagram and following LeBron James and seeing videos of him and his 2 sons playing Spider-Man, and then this week or the week before, seeing Lin-Manuel, obviously the creator of Hamilton, saying basically, my life is over. I'm going to be playing Spider-Man and posting pictures of it. And like,
he had a sweet setup too.
Yeah, he had a sweet setup. I think that's the kind of thing that I just didn't. I knew, and like Neymar was playing the game. So like, it's not just hitting like people here, but it's hitting people all across the world. And like, whether it's athletes and family, and so many families come. Like, I think it was one post was saying like, we live 3,000 miles away from each other, but we kind of been like playing Spider-Man together in certain ways. Or like one player decided to start volunteering at his aunt's homeless shelter.
Oh
like
my God.
That. And I was like, so it's as super cool as this to see like someone like LeBron James and his kids playing, but for the game to have an influence, like convincing someone to, essentially be greater and do something to help his community, to me, that's a really powerful thing.
That's amazing. When you see somebody like Lin-Manuel Miranda playing Spider-Man, do you ever just want to slide into the DMs? There's like this weird ego thing where you want to jump in there and just say like, hey, I wrote this game. I was the creative director for this game. Do you want to hang out sometime, dude?
Yeah. I wanted to ask LeBron if there's any tickets for the Lakers that he might want to give us.
I just wanted to sing Lin-Manuel. I want to say it must be nice to have Spider-Man on your side. Take one of the lines from the musical. But yeah, to me, it's just, or like, it's I would say it's just, I probably have said the word surreal more than anything over the last month.
Yeah.
And to see it, and it's like not fading away. Like people are still talking about it. Still people are discovering things about the game. And to see it have that much of an impact right away, but then have legs, has been pretty tremendous.
I'd imagine, I have no idea what your guys' next game is going to be. I can't possibly imagine. But I imagine in your minds, there must be this aspect of like, we need to remember what this is like. We need to remember how sweet this is. Is it just pure bliss and you're just trying to capture the moment and write little notes for yourself of how it feels?
Well, I'll tell you a funny story. So you're right. We should. I know I don't enough because I remember waking up the morning the reviews came out and I was really happy. So my wife, God, she's a saint. She woke up really early, went to the gym because she knew the reviews were hitting like around like 7, 8 o'clock. So she gets back so I can look at the reviews with her. And I see the review scores because they all kind of went live pretty quickly. And I kind of nod. She's like, it's good, right? And I kind of nodded my head going, yeah. She goes, I'm going to punch you in the face. And because it was really great. And I think that you kind of can lose perspective about how well it's being received. And you do have to sit back and enjoy it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't worked. I haven't worked on a ton of games that have scored this well, and been received this well. So it is nice to think about that. But I like to think about all the times as we were making it where we were like, oh man, this isn't working. We got to fix this. We got to make this better. You know, those are the things that I want to remember for the next game, because it's rare that you get an opportunity to make a sequel based on something that you already made. So if we do get the opportunity to work on a sequel, it'll be great to take all those lessons that we learned from the first one and apply them to another one.
Yeah, for sure. John, your history is really interesting. I think I had no idea what to expect from the writing in this game, and that was like a big recurring theme throughout our community discussion. Is like, hey guys, this writing's a lot better than I was expecting. Not that your name doesn't, have a certain level, but it's just like, man, this is hitting me so much harder than I expected from a Spider-Man game. What is your history in the industry? I saw that you worked on Jurassic Park Trespasser, which is incredibly interesting.
Yeah, I was a lead tester on that one. Well, my history is I came to Los Angeles to go to film school. I went to the graduate screenwriting program at USC. And, when I was there, I was like, all right, I'm going to be a movie writer. But I got a job as an intern at DreamWorks Interactive. And I was like, wait a second, you can have a career in games? This is kind of cool,
Yeah.
And I've been in games ever since. That was in the late 90s. And worked on a bunch of different games since then.
John is the hardest working person I've ever met in my entire life.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
No.
What does that mean? Does that mean late nights or just revisions, or what does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean, Brian?
Okay, so we were in. Okay, I'll tell you two stories. First of all, I mean, he puts in the time. I mean, it's 100%, and he's also one of the most collaborative people I've ever worked with. Just in terms of like, okay, what's the feedback? How do we make it better? But John is always dialed in. We were at, was it Comic-Con? Waiting for the Hall H panel.
Oh, yeah.
And he's literally in the corner, literally writing stuff for, I think it was DLC or it was for the end of the game.
It was for the end. Yeah.
And then we were in New York, and it was the week or two before launch, and whoever thinks we were done with DLC, we weren't, because John is literally in the corner of the room while the event going on, working on his laptop. He's always engaged. He's always trying to make things better. I feel really guilty that you work.
That's just because I'm antisocial.
You're not though. You're not.
I'm wondering, is that something where it's like, especially a Comic-Con situation where that community is focused, man? Is it just a matter of like, just dealing with anxiety, I just need to do what I do best, which is sitting in the corner of the room typing Mary Jane dialogue?
It was sort of that, but also there was definitely a deadline at that point. Yeah. And I think that the key for us on Spider-Man was, this is one of those games where we finally got the opportunity to not ship first draft stuff. I'm a big believer in writing is rewriting, and we got the time and the opportunity to really hone a lot of the scripts that we made for this game, and it really has become an ingrained part of our process. So that, like, working at Comic-Con or wherever, that is just taking the opportunity to say, okay, we've got something that we could ship, but how do we make it better? How do we continue to iterate on it?
John posted on Twitter this weekend. He said, hey, we have a writer position open. I retweeted it saying, come join us, let's write together. And then we will write and rewrite again and rewrite again.
Yeah.
So what afforded that luxury? Is it just production schedule?
I think part of it is production schedule. Part of it is that we had 3 writers on the team, me, Christos Gage, and Ben Arfman. In most of the other games I've worked on, I've been the only writer. So, I also think the industry is just moving to a place where we all recognize how important story is. Yeah. And so we do have to invest the time and the effort to make it as high quality as we can. And story is one of those things that it trickles down to all the other departments. So when you say, okay, we want to, adjust this story beat or whatever, we might be throwing away thousands of dollars of mocap footage that we already shot. So that becomes a discussion at the highest levels of, can we afford this? Or, do we really want to do this? And, thankfully, folks on this team said, yeah, let's do it. Let's make the best game we can. Yeah,
Brian, I heard you in interviews talk about how you had to be more flexible on this project than you've had to be on any project in the past. Why were so many things thrown out? Why were you guys rearranging so many things for this game?
Well, I think part of it is that we had never made a Spider-Man game before, so it's just the learning process of understanding who the character is. I mean, obviously we were all fans, but like being a fan of something and then making something based on it are two different things, right? And when you think you know how the character works in the situation or what he should sound like, you don't know it till you know it, kind of, unfortunately, fortunately. And I think that we did want to get it right, and it just, sometimes at the end of the day, you just don't know if it's going to work until it's actually in the game. And we try to limit that because it's really expensive when you do that. But, I think this game, that process of like throw it in the game, see if it works, try it out, is the way we did it this time around. But I think that kind of helped us understand the voice of the character, tone of the game and the universe. And now moving forward, like on DLC, I think even though DLC is, we're working really fast, we have less of the rework because we already kind of know the voice of the character and the tone we want to establish.
Right, all right. And just to be clear, there's going to be some spoilers moving ahead. So if you haven't finished Spider-Man, you might not want to listen to this or watch this just yet. But something you talked about being flexible with was the idea of combining some boss fights later on. I'm trying to remember which ones. I think you said...
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. It was like the Vulture fight that you threw together.
As we were working on the game, we had our Act 3. So everything post Prison Break. And originally it was we had more missions with Rhino, Vulture, Electro that were outside of what you saw in the final game. But what happened was that we were kind of running out of time, and it felt like a lot of fluff. It just felt like a lot of fluff. It didn't hit the quality bar. At the end of the day, we wanted to say quality is the most important. Whether it's 20 hours, 22 hours, that doesn't matter. It's how do we make the highest quality experience? And what was really awesome was that I feel like, so what we ended up doing was we started trimming down these extra missions or activities and started condensing things. And the beauty of that is like things like the Electro Vulture boss fight was actually ended up being way better than having two separate fights that we were going to do. It tied better into the story, the flow of Act 3. So almost like the constraint actually ended up making for a better product at the end of the day.
Was that, you think, the biggest shift overall, that late in the process, or were there some other big swings and big axes?
Well, there were a couple of things like I think early last year. Wait, what year is it? Is it 2018?
Yeah, I know. It's blurring together. Yeah.
I think it was early last year. We made some changes to some of the arcs.
Strengthening the thing. I think it was strengthening certain relationships and arcs, but then the fact that now we had more of the story there, looking for opportunities for more humor.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Things. So actually, like, it's not that we didn't want the game to be funny, but where were the right moments? And I think that one of the things that John and I decided early on was he wasn't going to be a quip machine like that. Like, this is not a 2-hour movie where you can be very strategic with the quipping. We have a 20, 30, 40-hour game depending on how much you play. We're never like, he's a very talented man, but I don't want him to try to write 50,000 quips because it's just going to feel they're all not going to be good. You remember the bad stuff. So he said, hey, let's go more situational humor. And then so we looked at the story that we had. We go, well, where are some moments that we can change things or maybe add something that'll add to the humor? For example, the scene in the middle of the game where he's cooking for MJ?
Yeah.
Originally, the end of that scene was her turning around, he was gone. And John and I had the idea, or I don't know who knows who it was. I'll take credit for it, right? Can I take credit for it? Okay, I'll take credit for it. Was that, well, what does he always do with his clothes when he changes? So you actually see him, like, he's just about to hop out, and she goes, did you just leave all your clothes in the kitchen? And you actually see him go grab his clothes. And then Yuri, the voice actor, did the walk.
That's super good.
That was all Yuri. So that was something we actually added relatively late to just find opportunities. And I feel like, and what I think what the Marvel movies have told us is that you can use humor at the right way to reduce the tension. When things are getting a little too serious, a little too dark, we can hit it, not remove it, so removing the stakes of the experience, but then just kind of level things out a little bit. So you don't really, at least for me, I'm not smart enough to understand that until we had more of the game in the works.
And that's, Brian said something about the Marvel movies. What I've heard from people about those is that they tend to do a lot of reshoots after they shoot the main like story.
Yeah.
And I think they know that, yeah, there's some things you're just not going to know until you get it all laid out of you. And there's little tweaks that you can do to the story, to the tone, to character, that if you're able to do that, it'll make the end product a lot better.
And the thing was, and sorry, I know we're answering this question.
No, that's great.
What was awesome was that we had that discussion really early on in the beginning of the year, and we went to Sony saying, "Hey, here's what we think we need to do." And you know what their thing was? Their question was, "Well, is it going to make the game better?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Okay." And that was the last discussion we had about it, and we just worked with the producers to get it done. Like, there was no debate. There was no how much is it going to cost. They just said they just want the game to be as good as possible. And Sony just let us run with it. So, like, I know everybody likes to ask us how awesome it is to work with Marvel, and it is great. Bill, Mike, and Eric and those guys, they're my boys. I love them. But I think it's really important to remember to people, like, this game isn't possible without Sony and PlayStation.
I'm confused about that relationship because listening to other interviews with you, it very much seems like Marvel and Insomniac partnered up, right? They were the original duo, and then PlayStation came on board after that?
No, not even close.
Okay.
No. Actually, it was PlayStation coming to Insomniac going, so PlayStation was talking to Marvel, and then what happened was PlayStation came to Insomniac saying, "Hey, would you ever be interested in working with Marvel?" And then what happened was Ted talked to a couple of us in the studio, then talked to the entire studio about it, and when he realized how much people were excited about it, that's when things started getting rolling. So really, it was PlayStation who started this whole thing. I mean, obviously Marvel, I mean, I'm sure Marvel was, I mean, in the loop of like approaching Insomniac. I don't know what those conversations were like,
right.
But there was a conversation with Marvel and PlayStation first. Then about them working together, and then it was Insomniac. At least that's what I believe it was. It wasn't about, we never talked to Marvel first. It was always Sony coming to us.
And did they go to Sony then, or is Sony and PlayStation tied in then because there's still some legal tie-in with the Spider-Man character itself? Or?
No, absolutely nothing to do with the movie stuff. So anybody who thinks it's tied to any of the Sony picture stuff, it's nothing. Has absolutely nothing to do with that.
And I'm still in the dark about this one simple thing too. The idea of, is this 1,000% self-contained? Because obviously in the game, there's the joke about like, oh, I think the Avengers are on the West Coast. Is it 100%?
I think it's funny. So
yeah.
I think you have to ask Marvel about the Marvel. I'm sure you want to ask about the Marvel gaming universe. That's what everybody's asking.
Of course, yeah.
Here's the thing is, we could not make the game at this point thinking about the larger universe. I said this in previous interviews. Early on, I mean, even before John was probably in this project, I was having really early discussions with Mike and Bill. Mike Jones, the executive vice president or executive producer, vice president of Marvel Gaming, and Bill Roseman, who's the executive creative director. And our thing, they were new to Marvel. Bill had been at Marvel for a long time, but Bill had never been on the gaming side, and Mike had been a game developer for a while and moved into Marvel. And when they were hired by Jay Ong, that was a new group, and we kind of talked about, they want to make big console games, and we talked about, it's like, we got to get that Iron Man. And what I mean by Iron Man, I don't mean like the start of a universe.
Right.
It's like it's the start of like the Marvel experience that you expect from a console game. It wasn't about the start of a Marvel gaming universe. It was about the quality bar that we all expected from those games. Mm-hmm. So whether that's the future or not, I don't know. That's a question for Bill and Mike and Jay. But for us, it was just about giving fans the best Spider-Man experience they could ever imagine.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I still feel like you saying that's a question for Marvel. That doesn't rule it out, which seems crazy. I think everyone's under the assumption that it's ruled out at this point.
The thing we probably, I don't know, is like there's licensing issues. I mean, questions and stuff like, Square Enix is making the Avengers game, and I'm not a business. I'm just a simple developer. I don't know those.
I'm just a caveman.
I don't know those. I don't know. By the way, people get that reference. They're old like us. Like, I don't know what the stuff is. So like, I just been told, hey, here's Spider-Man, make it awesome. Yeah, go for it.
Got it. I mean, how much communication is there with Marvel about their future? Like, did you know, for example, that like, okay, Mysterio is going to be coming up in the next Homecoming film or like the sequel to Homecoming, so maybe let's not do anything with them? Any communication like that?
I mean, I think we know what we if they feel like they can share it with us, they'll share it with us. But I don't think it's like it's not like we're learning everything on the sly. I think they're
actually. I remember asking them a lot about the Homecoming movie because we were developing this game when Homecoming came out.
Right.
And can we see a script? Can we see? They're like,
And I also think from our standpoint, we trust Bill, Mike, Eric, and that group to let us know when we need to know. Like they're so dialed into us or what we're doing. They're literally only 15 minutes down the road from us.
Yeah.
That if anything comes up that we need to know about, like they're so dialed in across the board, which is like, and sometimes I feel like we're the only game they're working on, but I know they're not. They're so dialed into what we're doing that I feel like if any of those situations came up, they would just let us know so we could, course correct.
But the other thing to remember is that we are working in our own universe, right? Like from the beginning, what was great is that Bill and Mike and Eric were like, oh, if you want to make a change to this character, cool. Whatever works for your game. And we were like, awesome.
Yeah. As long as we had a good story reason or a good gameplay decision to do it and it was paying off, like we all know the end of the game, right? What happens to a certain character.
Yeah.
She goes bye-bye.
Right.
Well, the whole question, it wasn't whether we should do it or not. The question was it earned? Mm-hmm. That's what we decided upon. Like if it was earned and it helped story gameplay reasons, they were in support of it.
This seems insane to have hey, if it's earned, whatever you guys want to do, justify it, but go for it from Marvel, and Sony in theory saying, here's all the money and time you need. Like, how does that not get to your head and just create this endless vacuum of, I'm going to spend 10 years making this Spider-Man game?
One thing is, even though Marvel is giving us a lot of feedback and everything, we're also getting as much feedback on the game from Sony as well. We have really, really awesome producers with Connie Booth is one of our lead. I mean, I think I can't remember her exact title, but she's really high up on the production side.
She's been around forever. She's a legend that no one ever talks about in the game industry.
Yeah. Connie's absolutely amazing, right? I mean, she's awesome. But she's always putting developers out, and so Connie was one of the people I think who talked to Ted originally about the idea of working with Marvel. And then we have Grady Hunt, who's one of our lead producers. But we also had Mark Cerny. Now, Mark Cerny has worked with us forever.
Yeah.
Back in the day when Ted was starting to get this company going. That plus Joe and our day-to-day producers, they were giving us as much feedback on the game and the story and everything. So it was having two very strong entities with great, and what I would say, great actionable feedback. It wasn't hey, wouldn't it be nice if? It was, hey, here's an issue, which guess what? You have them during development. And we work with them on, hey, here's some solutions that we could go with. Here's some ideas. So it was a very, for Insomniac, we're a very collaborative studio within our group. Like, animators and gameplay and design and story are all working together really closely. We have a very similar relationship with our publishers and our partners. So it was just kind of taking that internal philosophy and extending it to what we do with Sony and Marvel. So it wasn't just like, as you said, here's money from Sony. Like, no, they were as much giving us feedback on the game and how to make it better as Marvel was.
Yeah. All right, let's get creative here. All right, John, let's focus on what do you think is like the most personal detail you put into this game? Is there one scene that always really strikes a chord with you because you realize how much it comes from your own life?
That's a great question.
Do you feel like it's a personal game overall?
I do. Early on when we made the decision to put Peter in his early 20s, Brian and I talked a lot about what were we like in our early 20s, and we thought that we could take on the world and do all this stuff. So I think and I've always identified with Peter Parker because he's so ambitious. He tries to juggle everything and make everything perfect. And if you ask my wife, I'm probably the same way. Like I'm always trying to be greater.
Working on the script in the corner of the living room. Got it.
Yeah, exactly. I told her recently I'm gonna take a vacation at the end of the year, and I told her recently I'm gonna have a hard time because if I don't have anything to do, my brain's gonna go crazy. So I
have some stuff your brain thinking about.
I'm making a list of home projects. I think we might redo the kitchen cabinets. I think that's the latest.
That's not what I was looking for. But okay, sure.
So there's that, but also, I remember when I was in film school, and I think the Raimi movies came out around then. And as a young writer, I was like, oh my God, if I was ever able to work on Spider-Man, like that would be the most amazing thing ever, right? And having that journey of creating this game, and especially the ending, which was really important to me, because what makes Peter Parker a great character is that he's always sacrificing something, So when I see that, the last 5 minutes of the game or so, a lot of people have sent me links to people crying at the end.
Yeah.
And I think for me that is when my heart gets full. You know what I mean? It's like that to me is what a great Peter Parker story is all about.
Can we talk about constructing that scene in particular, just having that very clear choice, boiling things down to such a extreme degree where it's like, hey, either or, Peter Parker, choose right now. Do you want to talk about getting to that conclusion, as fantastical as it may be?
Yeah, I think, from the beginning, I remember the first time I ever hugged Brian was like in the first month we were working on it. We had like a story treatment. And
it was very end. We were like delivering it that night. Remember?
Yeah. And we were working on it, and then we were trying to figure out exactly how to end it. And I think we were afraid to end it like it ended up being.
Yeah.
And then Brian's like, "F it, why don't we just kill her?"
Kill her.
And he came over to my desk, and I did one of these like, oh yeah. And then he went away, and I thought about it, and I went back through like the whole arc of Peter's life in our story, and I could see the spine, as you say, of everything leading up to that point. And I had that moment where I was like, oh my God, this is going to work. This is perfect. And I went over and I hugged him, and I was like, this is going to work.
Yeah.
Was it at that point, did you have that idea of like, okay, he can use this to either cure Aunt May or make the overall vaccine?
Yeah. It was that. And we it was I think the thing we actually went back to was when Peter succeeds, Spider-Man fails, and vice versa. It's a very common thing within his life.
Yeah.
So you kind of see that come to fruition. And the idea, if you look back at all the Aunt May scenes with Pete, she's kind of giving him his final lessons in this game. Like she's talking about the rent. She's talking about the relationship with Aunt May, with MJ. Yeah. You see there's 3 or 4 moments where they're just together, and you kind of see it's like she's not saying her goodbyes, but she really is kind of saying, okay, I'm going to leave now. Here's my final words of wisdom to you.
Right.
Because I think the other thing is, like, depending on where you are in your life, a lot of people, that's when you're in your early 20s, that's when people start to leave. Like, you start to, have family or friends who get sick and pass away. And that's just another sign of you're entering another stage of your life. And we wanted Pete to, we thought, A, it fit the story well, but B, it's like another sign of that coming of age story that we were trying to deliver.
Yeah, and I love Yuri's performance in that scene is so unbelievably good. You guys just have to be rubbing your hands together when he gives that performance. But specifically, you want to talk about like writing that idea of him just saying, I don't know what to do, and seeing him break down and cry like that is such a rare look at Spider-Man. I loved it.
Yeah, I don't know where that line came from. I think it was just...
I don't know. No, I will tell you that. What was crazy, I was going to take credit for it, but I know I didn't do it. What was really, I knew it was really good when we shot it on the PCAP stage. And so we were shooting Silver Sable stuff the same day. So Nicole Elise, who is our Silver Sable, was on set, but she was off to the side because we were doing the death scene. And halfway through, she ran off stage. She's like, I can't take this anymore watching it.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, it's going to be good.
Yeah.
So it's really Nancy Linari and Yuri, who they made it seem like this PCAP stage is huge, right? Because we have to do a lot of things. We have to set up things, but it was really, it felt like they were the only 2 people in the world at that point on set.
That's when you really value actors, when you see them work in an environment like that.
Yeah.
Yuri is able to like forget all the bright lights around him, forget all the people standing around holding up mats and, cameras and all that kind of stuff. And he just gets into it. And the same with Nancy. Those two, and I think we had shot a couple scenes with them already.
Yep.
I think, it was your idea to wait.
I wanted to wait.
To shoot that scene pretty late so that they had like a natural connection before we got there.
Originally I wanted to be the last thing we ever shot.
Oh, makes sense.
We couldn't do it from a scheduling standpoint, but I actually wanted to be the last thing we shot on BCAP stage.
Yeah. Okay, very specific point. Why didn't May invite Peter Parker to her house when he got evicted?
There were a couple of reasons for that. One, we didn't want to build out Queens.
Yep. All right. Yeah. Figured.
So there's that. But also, I think part of the story of this game is that the Feast Center is an important kind of center for everybody, and showing that Peter needs to sleep there in his life. That goes back to that theme of not only worlds colliding, but also when Spider-Man wins, Peter loses, right?
Yeah.
And so Spider-Man is out there doing all this stuff, and Peter just keeps losing. He loses his apartment. He ends up sleeping at a homeless shelter, right? Thankfully, his Aunt May works there, so we got to sleep on the couch. But
a little cozier,
I also think another element is that the easy thing for him is just to go stay with his aunt, right? But I don't know about you guys, but last thing I wanted to do when I got out of the house was go back home and live with my parents. It was I still got to live my life, and he's working in the city, he's working for Otto. She gives him the money to kind of, hey, just you get back on your feet a little bit. I just think we wanted to.
But he initially says no, and I remember that moment too when I was in my early 20s, and I had a bunch of student loans and working on Blockbuster Video, trying to make.
Oh yeah, she even says you're stubborn, just like Ben.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, another quick emotional moment that I just loved, and it's so subtle and so simple. But when MJ walks in and sees Peter Parker after Doc Ock's attack, and they're getting ready for surgery on him or whatever they do in that scene, and she just says, "Oh my God!" She didn't need to say anything more than that. There's not some big crying scene. Her performance of that line is so good.
That's Laura Bailey. There's nothing more to say. That's Laura Bailey, who is unfreaking believably talented. I mean, you've seen her in a lot of games. There's a reason why she's cast in a lot of games. And, Laura came in and probably auditioned for 4 different roles. And we're like, well, she can have any of them if she really wants them. And we just said, when we decided how big the MJ role was going to be, we wanted someone like Laura to take it.
I think Laura's worked on every Insomniac game I've made since I've been here. Yeah.
God, she gets around. It's crazy. What about that scene in particular? Was it originally bigger? Did they take off his suit in some scene, which would make a lot of sense if they're performing surgery?
Yeah, remember she was gonna tell they were gonna pull the mask off, start pulling off. She was gonna say, "Don't pull it all the way off," and they're gonna put the oxygen on him.
Yeah, I remember writing that scene and being like, "Oh man, this is a lot of pages."
It's a ton.
And I think the process of iteration and rewriting is trying to cut things, kill your darlings, as they say. So we do a lot of trimming, but it still ended up being a pretty long scene with a lot of stuff happening.
Yeah. Okay, what about the idea of just writing how the hell you're going to get the spider to Miles? Do you want to talk about that construction and how that evolved?
It was really different in the beginning.
Yeah.
It was really weird.
What was it?
Really, oh God, it wasn't even okay, I can't believe I'm going to say this. I've never told anybody the story, ever. He originally wasn't going to get bit by the spider.
Yeah.
It was going to be a combination of Peter's blood and Mr. Negative.
Well, at first it was just
him.
Peter's blood.
Yeah.
And he was already cut.
Yeah.
And then Peter's blood got into him.
Yeah. And then originally what was going to happen was, I can't believe I've never told the story yet.
Yeah.
World exclusive.
Yeah.
I know you guys like world exclusives.
Can't get enough.
Originally what happened was you were going to take down Negative, and then Pete was going to be so injured that Miles was actually going to carry him back to Feast.
Yeah.
And what we were going to do was Miles is going to start developing spider powers as he's starting to walk Pete back. And he actually takes Pete's web shooters and starts doing web stuff. But the fiction was all over the place.
Yeah.
we had like 45 people in the scene.
I remember that it was
so
the
complicated.
the big end battle was like, why is Miles showing up here? I don't know, but it's cool if we get him there.
Yeah,
It's like,
so it was one of those things that just didn't make it.
Has that happened in the comics? Of like the blood rubbing against somebody else?
No.
That was another thing that was wrong with it, is that it didn't really, kind of track.
It was one of those things where like, Marvel was like twisted, and they were like, we were all in agreement, like, this ain't working. It's just not working.
Okay, so then it was the idea of, okay, somehow the spider has to break out. So MJ, that makes sense. And then the spider rides in MJ's pocket like a little buddy for a little while. Like, how do you come up with that?
Haven't you ever like been in the car and just been driving along, and all of a sudden a spider goes on, you're like, ah!
Options to bite you. It's right on the edge. Was there ever the idea of MJ getting bit or anything like that on the table?
I think we might have talked about it, but we kind of knew Miles was the right person.
Yeah, I mean, Miles wasn't originally supposed to be as big a part of the game as he was, but we, again, trying to make our own unique Spider-Man universe, we thought it would be really interesting to introduce him into this world and not be some weird alternate dimension portal.
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah,
and plus I think we had written the end credit scene where he and Pete are moving into Pete's new apartment. I think we'd written that, and we're like, oh, we love that scene. That's really fun.
Yeah.
We can't lose Miles getting his powers. We got to figure out how to make that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, super quick. There's a line that we've been trying to figure out, and maybe it's very obvious, but at some point Spider-Man says to Rhino, "You're my second favorite Russian."
Oh. Are you hinting at
What is the hint
Kraven?
there? Is it Kraven?
I don't know. I don't remember why we said second favorite. Ask Ben Arfin wrote that line.
Ben Arfin wrote that line.
We'll ask him. I bet you he means Kraven. Maybe. I don't know.
Or maybe it's just a random joke. Like,
it might have been a random joke.
Probably more a random joke. I feel like if we're really so specific about villains, and like the backpacks hint at other villains he's run into.
Right.
Never hint at Kraven. So
I also know that Ben wrote a Rocky joke.
Yeah. Oh, in the Vulture Electro fight, there's the Ivan Drago joke.
Maybe it was Ivan Drago as his favorite. I don't know.
Okay. I like that Electro quotes Rocky, but doesn't seem too tickled by it. Like, does he know he's quoting Rocky?
Yeah.
Well, so that was that idea. So it's funny you mentioned that, because I love it, because I'm a huge Rocky fan.
Yeah.
Like Bill Roseman and I are huge Rocky fans, and we knew some people would get the reference. Like, actually, it was Ben and Jeff. Jeff is the animator on that boss fight. I think it was their idea. They put it in. I loved it, and people were like, "Some people aren't going to get it." And I'm like, "I don't care. It's that good. I'll write it for me." And that's where it came about. And I also I think it was one of the rare times where we could kind of reference pop culture a little bit. I wish we could do that a little bit more. I think he came over to Ben and saying, like, I want to do this more often. We just were so late to do it. I like it. By the way, in the evicted mission, when he's going after, he's asking for the pizza place, Ray's, original, that's all Seinfeld. It's an homage to Seinfeld when
awesome.
Kramer's lost in the city and Jerry's asking where he is, and he's like, I'm on the corner of First and First. It must be the nexus of the universe. And he's like, it's like Ray's, original Ray's, and it's all based on an homage because I'm a huge Seinfeld fan.
That entire scene is so good. That's actually subtly one of my favorite scenes of the entire game. But okay, the big question, the big thing that our community was emailing in about, trying to wrap their minds around, is the Doc Ock timeline. Figuring out when he lined all this stuff up. He had the raft blueprints in the background. So it's the basic question of how evil was he the entire time? What was he planning even before the chip was even a factor? Or was it all chip?
So what we talked about was the real change in Dr. Octavius occurred when Norman took his stuff away.
That's the twist. Okay.
So that was the moment where he said, all right, I'm now a failure. What am I going to do next? And that's when he goes and he gets all the supplies from AIM. I don't know if you notice, when you go back to the lab at one point, you can see all those boxes and they have the AIM logo on there. And Pete's like, I don't know, do we want to be working with these guys? It's like, that's when Doc Ock starts doing everything. And he's a genius. He works really fast. So he manages to get all that organized. And at the same time, he has the secret hideout that you eventually find later in Act.
And so he got that secret hideout after the thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you play the game from the moment the funding's taken away through when he becomes officially Doc Ock, every time you go to the lab, you can see the lab and the everything around it. It starts to grow where you see all the pieces adding up to that. Like you look at all the whiteboards and the printers and everything. It all adds up to what eventually happens.
And we even actually talked about changing the lighting of the entire lab to match Otto's mood as you go throughout the game. And each time you come back, it gets a little darker and a little more, and the environment gets a little bit more messy, and like you can sense that he's kind of falling apart mentally.
Yeah.
But back to the question that I'm sure everybody's wondering: is it the chip or is it him?
Yeah.
I think that's for you to decide. I don't think that we as storytellers want to answer that question for you. I think we put that out there, and we'll let you.
And I think the other thing is you have to. And another thing is there's a line. The last line Otto says to Peter is, "Don't worry, your secret's safe with me." Is that the chip's gone? So, but he says it in a really evil way.
Yeah.
So is it him? Was it? Is it did the chip have a permanent effect? Time will tell.
Time will indeed tell. Okay, what about Otto in that dream sequence in particular? I love that stuff. I love when he's explaining, like, you are the poison, everybody you touch suffers, all that stuff. You want to talk about constructing that scene a little bit?
Well, I think
that mission.
That was a tough mission, just because we did want to tell a lot of story in that mission, and the gameplay was a little bit different, and it was hard. Those kinds of missions are hard. But I think what's important to remember about that mission is a lot of it is inside Peter's head.
Yeah.
So this is his own doubts, like, coming after him, right? This is in his mind. Yeah. He thinks that that's how Dr. Octavius is treating him, talking to him, but it's really himself giving that kind of doubt.
Right. Yeah, it's a fun concept. Like, I think at some point, Scorpion says something about how Uncle Ben probably jumped in front of the bullet or something like that, and Spider-Man has some line where he's like, I would rather fight the real Scorpion than my subconscious at this point.
Yeah.
A nice idea.
So I think it's like the poison brings out all of the insecurities, the fears, maybe what Peter's actually thinking more than like the actual reality.
Yeah. The idea of the poison doing this, something we talked about and people wrote in about as well, is like, this seems 1,000% like Mysterio.
I don't know. I mean, I think more of Mysterio is more of illusion than like a poison. I think it's because to me, Mysterio, at least in my head, and hey, everybody has their own interpretation of these characters. Mysterio is more about illusion rather than the psyche of somebody.
So it was always Scorpion with the poison?
Yeah, always. Yeah, Mysterio was never planned.
Oh wow, okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Just having those arms, by the way, just like bust through and floating around, that looks so cool. Like the art team just knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, that was all a designer named John Ballard.
Yeah.
He was handed the mission, and he was trying to make it was literally, he did it all, like, just designer made it, like, just to sell the concept.
Yeah.
And then we had animators and everybody come in and make it look pretty, but that was all John.
That's one of my favorite parts of making games is that you put down like a basic story and you kind of give it to the team, and then people like John Ballard will grab their little piece of it and they'll be like, oh, I know what to do with this, and they'll go make something amazing, and you'll be like, oh my God, that is crazy.
Yeah. In general, have any reactions out there surprised you? I'd imagine you knew the stealth was going to be debated, but anything else bigger than that stands out that you didn't see in the game while you guys were making it, that now it's clear as day?
There were things that I didn't know.
Okay.
About the game, which I know is tragic. I should know everything, but I didn't know that Peter had 3 chest hairs modeled.
Right. That's very good.
Yeah.
And I saw Xavier, the artist who did that, in the kitchen the other day, and I'm like, that is the best thing I think.
What about
But I think what makes it cool for me is that Xavier was playing the game and paying attention, and he heard that joke where Peter says, "Oh, I can't have people seeing my 3 chest hairs," and so he went and he did something based on that joke.
And that line almost didn't make it in the game. But
I know.
Cut it.
I know.
Cut it. Yeah. Things that surprised me. Well, one is I can't believe how many people have platinumed it already. Like
That's wild.
That's shocking. I'm glad nobody debated about why is the webbing stick for so long on backpacks. Like, I'm glad we didn't get it. No one debated that. It was fun. Like, thank you for understanding it's a game sometimes.
Were you ever close to spoiling anything in retrospect? Were you guys in interviews like dangerously close?
Every E3, I was absolutely petrified of bringing the word Otto up.
Yeah.
Literally about the fact that he was in the game, especially the one we revealed, the Sinister Six. I was because I'm like Rhino, Scorpion, Electro. I would somehow say Ock by mistake, so I would be petrified that Otto would get spoiled, not just by anybody but by me.
Yeah.
I especially going back and watching it, the rapid fire video you did with Leo Vader at Game Informer here, where he makes a joke about Doc Ock being in the game, and you can see your facial expression, and then Leo follows it up by making some joke about Doc Ockberg, my
By the way,
dentist. Or
I
whatever.
would be the worst poker player in the world because I can't hide anything. So like I'm sure if you see my face, I kind of do a like if you go back and look, knowing that, you probably can see me like tense up a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, for sure, I would be a terrible poker player.
It was funny, by the way, listening to you and Kind of Funny talk about how nerve-wracking that interview was for you. So thank you for being a good sport.
Outside of the reviews coming out, that rapid fire thing was definitely one. Yeah, because I was worried they were going to ask me all this Spider-Man trivia, and I'm like, and that guy doesn't know crap about the Spider-Man. Why is he making Spider-Man?
Yeah.
But they were great. Leo was great. They were awesome. So thank you for being kind.
Yeah, it turns out it was mainly just an opportunity for Leo to make jokes.
My best friend is Luke Smith.
Yeah.
And Luke is the creative director on Destiny. And his was really, really funny. And then Corey did one, which obviously Corey's really, really funny. I was like, well, they're really good. I'm probably going to suck. So I was already nervous about that.
Editing's a magical thing, Brian, as I'm sure you know.
It's amazing. You guys are gods. Thank you.
Thanks. Just in general, I want to say, like, one big thing that I felt towards the end of this game was just realizing the impossible within myself that I'm excited about Green Goblin. Like, I think I went into this game hoping, like, I hope Green Goblin isn't in this game. And the idea that throughout the course of the game, I'm now stoked to see Green Goblin in a video game, that is a monumental task just within my soul, I feel like.
So it's interesting. So the original plan for E3, that last E3, was we basically wanted people, the idea was we weren't going to reveal the sixth guy.
Yeah.
We wanted people to basically debate, is it Green Goblin or Doc Ock? We knew people were going to assume it's one of those two.
Yeah.
We already revealed Norman, so we figured, okay, people are going to think it. So we actually, if you listen really closely, we put a little bit of like jet engines in the sound, just a little bit to get people to see if they would notice it. And originally, you actually heard a voiceover from Ock. And Bobby Coddington, our animation director, was like, I think it works better if you don't have any voice. Mm-hmm. And then it will also tie more into the idea that who is it. And because I realized later, I'm like, oh, we already heard what Norman sounds like. So that was the original plan, but then we pulled back and we wanted to hear the debate of whether it was going to be Ock or Goblin the whole time.
Yeah, yeah. By the way, just those voice actors, especially Doc Ock's, his work is incredible in the game. It's so good.
Bill is Otto. Like,
yeah.
Bill did everything. Bill is the head scan. That's what Bill looks like.
Okay.
All the body performance. He did all the VO. He is an absolute unbelievable pro. He was amazing. He is the embodiment of Doc Ock.
Yeah. Okay, a couple other quick things for you. Your suit being in the Spider-Verse movie. It was in the trailer in the background of a shot. Did you have any idea?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I want to know.
I still don't know how that wound up happening.
I want to know who made that decision and how quickly they got it in there.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's amazing.
That's crazy. Can't you guys call up Bill and figure out how the hell that happened?
They've been out. I just haven't had a chance. It's just one of those things where I just can't believe that it happened. So it was really, really freaking cool. Like, I woke up it's funny. James Stevenson, you guys know James.
Yeah.
He sent me the clip, like just the still, and I was like, what the hell am I looking at? And then he circled it, and I was like, oh my God, it's in the movie. That was pretty surreal. And from that and seeing him in the comic, it's been it's been crazy.
Yeah. Have you guys seen Venom yet?
Yes.
Yes.
Did you see it as a studio?
Yes.
Okay. Reactions.
It's fun.
It's a fun movie.
You know,
Okay.
so there was. Did you guys stay for? Have you seen it?
No, I haven't. But
Okay. Stay after the credits because there's a Spider-Verse.
Yeah,
trailer.
there's an awesome Spider-Verse clip at the end.
okay, much
awesome.
more excited about the Spider-Verse clip than Venom. Is that fair to say?
You know.
It's, you should go see it.
Okay, that's very nice of you. I mean, do you guys have a list of notes? Did it change your trajectory at all because you guys want to differentiate yourself moving into the future from what the movie is?
No, not at all. I think any kind of Spider-Man thing that comes out, we try to read it or watch it
Yeah.
or whatever, just because it's good for us to know if we're working on something that is Marvel.
Yeah.
It's good to know what everybody else is doing and how they're interpreting.
Yeah, I mean, and whether it's Venom, Aquaman, Captain Marvel, it doesn't I think Daredevil season 3, we treat them as all the same. A lot of us go see the Marvel movies together, so it wasn't like it was anything special going to see, different from seeing the Venom thing. But yeah, I think it's always interesting to see what talented writers, directors, studios do with these characters that a lot of us have grown up with. It's just kind of another kind of data point that we can look at and go, okay, how are they handling certain things across tone or spectacle or character development, etc.
But in general, you guys pretty excited to kind of put your own spin on Venom?
If the wind goes that way, I guess. I don't know. We'll see. Right now we're focused on DLC. You like that answer?
No, I don't like that at all, Brian. I mean, do you like the classic Venom as is? Are you attracted to that storyline, I guess is the question.
As I said on Kind of Funny, I think that suit and that character deserves his own story. And, if we get to tell it, cool.
Right. Okay, that's it. Okay, this is very important. Have you guys seen Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark, the musical?
Oh.
No, I have not.
Oh,
I've never seen it.
Have you listened to the soundtrack?
I have not. I know you two did the soundtrack, right?
Yeah, it's bonkers.
Yeah. We were going to do something related to Turn Off the Dark, but we ended up not doing it.
I think we did a reference somewhere, and then we took.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hadn't seen it, so I really didn't know. I felt kind of weird, kind of making it.
I was digging through trying to find some reference because they invented their own villain called Swiss Miss for Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark.
Yes. James Stevenson sent me the Swiss Miss villain. He's like, I got to be in a game one day. And I'm like, oh, I don't know about that.
Okay. I beg of you, just watch the Letterman performance where it's Green Goblin singing "The City Needs a Freak Like Me." It is the most surreal Letterman performance. You're up there with Miku or whatever. Okay.
Right now to
Please. It's very silly and fun. Okay. So the DLC. Is there any framing you guys can have for this? Is it maybe bigger than people are expecting, less story focused than people are expecting? Any expectation setting here?
Well, let's be honest. Are people ever satisfied with how much DLC you give them? I think that's I think we have to be honest about that. We know that there's people just want more and more content. Every game, I want more and more and more and more. Our job is to deliver something at a very high quality that matches what we did in Spider-Man, the game that we released, right?
Yeah.
So our focus is we want to deliver something that has a great story, that furthers the experience that you started with, adds more activities you can do in the world. Whether you think that's long enough or not, I think that's up to the person. I can tell you that I didn't get to work on as much of it because I was out doing PR tours and stuff like that. But I came back and played it. I left it when it was very, very early and came when it was close to being done. And I was really, 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 really pleased with how it turned out. I think it's a very self-contained story that really does a great job with Black Cat. Black Cat's performance is great. We do some twists and turns I don't think people are going to expect with the character. There's a lot of great humor in there. Some really fun missions that build upon what we did, and even some missions that I think I was like, oh, I wish we had thought of this for the. And then there's some really fun activities, and of course there's new suits. So I think that, and there's things we added for photo mode as well. So and there's some really funny things with photo mode. So I think that it's a very I'm really pleased. Like as someone who's bought DLC before, I can tell you I'm pretty happy with how much content we were able to deliver and at the quality we were. Whether it's enough for somebody,
Yeah.
that's a really hard question to answer.
Are we talking like under 4 missions? Is there any kind of framing you can give for what people should expect?
It's more than 4 missions.
More than 4 missions.
For the heist. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any sort of time length you can give?
I think, like I said, depends on the kind of player you are and how fast you can go through, and whether you do all the different activities that we have in the world.
Yeah, there's new side content that we're also putting in there, and
so James will probably shoot me if I give too many details, but I would say it's a very high quality story, kind of a main story, and then there's alternate activities that you can do in the world.
Cool. And it's all coming out before the end of the year, is that right?
Yeah, all three are coming out. So the first one is the heist, and then we have 2 more. And they will all introduce new things.
Awesome. And New Game Plus, do you guys have a timeline for that?
Soon, really, really soon.
Super soon. Okay, by Thursday when this episode's going live?
I don't know. I don't know about that.
Okay, gotcha. Cool. One last question. Scale of 1 to 10, how difficult is it to make a co-op game?
Man,
it's a lot of work.
Well, I will tell you, it is a lot harder if you don't start off making a co-op game. Right.
Okay.
Like I've been on a project before where it's like, okay, we're 2 months in, we've got some core tech, our hero is going good, all the stuff. And it would be so awesome if we could just play co-op. That is hard. But if you start off and you say we're going to build all of our systems to have to work well within the co-op framework, then it's a little bit.
I think a couple things is there are some story narrative challenges with co-op experience.
Yeah.
When you're by yourself, you can play the game how you want to play. When you play a co-op game, is your friend or your buddy going to want to play games and you do? So there's that. There are some technical ramifications of like the overhead of syncing certain things for combat. There's always overhead with all that stuff to do. A lot of smarter people can probably answer that better, but it's not as easy as just flipping a switch and making it go off.
Why do you ask that question?
I mean, because everybody is screaming, okay, Miles and Peter, obviously, here we go, co-op game for the sequel.
Yeah.
Do you guys like co-op games? Obviously, with Insomniac, you have some history, but personally,
I've worked on co-op games. I mean, I worked on Fuse, which that was really when the co-op thing was really hitting big. So yeah, I definitely like co-op experiences. I mean, I'm probably much more of a co-op player than I am a competitive player. Because by the time I get up in competitive, I'm already destroyed by everybody who spend a lot more time on it. So yeah, okay. I'm always about the co-op experience.
Me and my son love to play Overcooked, the co-op cooking game. So,
but imagine instead of like cooking burgers, it was like fighting demons.
Yeah,
just the potential there. Okay, so more likely for Spider-Man 2 to be cooperative than competitive, at least. I think that's the takeaway here.
Sure. If you want to say that.
Sure. Anything else you guys want to say? Anything you want to clear up? Anything you want to get out there?
No. I mean, I think first of all, thanks for all covering the game as much as you guys have. I mean, big shout out to Reiner for being such a I'm glad he was able to do the cover story. I know that was like one of his first cover stories in a long time. Yeah. So it was funny. As someone who was a journalist and it was like EGM versus Game Informer so long, I thought of Reiner and Andy as enemies. I was like, I don't like those guys. They were stealing my cover stories. They're the ones getting GTA over us and be like, Game Informer. But it's been awesome. Is I've known Andy for a long time. I've only kind of seen Reiner at here and there, but I was finally able to sit down and talk to him for a while. And he's a great guy. It's also great that he likes the game. So, and he's also a huge comic book fan. So find somebody who's so passionate about comics and the character and it was a good sign that we were on the right path.
Oh, good. John, what don't you like about Reiner? Let's get it on the record here.
He's a Cubs fan.
He is a Cubs fan, yeah. And I went to college in Milwaukee, so I'm necessarily a Brewers fan. More of a Bucks fan though, because
I get it.
Sorry, he doesn't like shirtless Spider-Man. That's what I don't like about Reiner.
Oh, yeah, I guess that seems nonsensical.
So that's what I don't like about Reiner. Yeah. How could you not like shirtless Spider-Man? Come on.
By the way, somebody wrote in for our game club talking about like, isn't it kind of effed up that all these people are like dressing up as supervillains at this Halloween party? Like it's like dressing up as a terrorist. They killed people.
It's funny you mentioned that because we totally had that debate. I was like, are we like basically saying like glorifying bad people. Like
Yeah.
I actually was a little bit worried about it. And then we showed it to Bill and Mike, and they were like they thought it was so interesting of an idea for a mission. I was like, all right, we're fine.
One of my favorite parts of game development was when our lead character, ours, Gavin, he made everybody at the party wear Spider-Man suits. So at one point, you're at the Halloween party, and it's like everybody is dressed as Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
It looked really weird, but
Yeah.
it was really funny to play through that mission like that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, John and Brian, thank you so much for your time, guys, and good job.
Cool.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Job well done. Long journey's almost over, you guys.
Yeah, we're getting there. This guy needs a vacation. He's been working really hard.
right,
I'm ready
good.
for a vacation. Yeah. What is it, after Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
We're going to redo the cabinets. I think we're going to do it. I got to buy like a paint sprayer. No?
Okay, you're not going to do that. You're going to be scribbling ideas for the sequel instead of working on these cabinets. We know it. That's fine.
Yeah. I've got you when you make a game and you're in a relationship at the same time, you incur a lot of debt, a lot of relationship debt.
Ah.
So I have some debt to repay.
Oh, I've been paying it big time.
We're living-
Big time.
Yeah, Doc Ock will really help you take care of those debts. He's great for that type of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Yes.
Thank you so much, guys. That was just a clip from a larger show called The Game Informer Show. You can find it on iTunes, Google Play, or GameInformer.com. We take the fun opportunities and exclusive information from Game Informer magazine and boil it into a show that airs every Thursday with exclusive cover story information, developer interviews, a lot of fun stuff. So come love games with us.